How we doing, everyone? Welcome to our first asynchronous class. Before we get to the questions and before we get to class, I wanted to go through a couple things on Blackboard to make sure we're all on the same page. So as you can tell by the dates, these are our modules. We did the intro in person. Hopefully you enjoyed some of these articles, or if not, you've printed them at work or looked at them at work, because these two networking ones and this learning one are very, very good. So we started this week, and on Tuesday, you guys did a team deliverable here for me. In general, the team deliverables were pretty solid. It's really beneficial for me when you have the nuggets and the questions separate, so it's easier for me to pull the questions out. I would appreciate that. But the level of detail and the quality of questions were pretty good for the first week. Next week, we have another team journal. This is where your deliverable will be, and here's your articles for next week. And then on the 30th, you notice there's no team journal because we meet in person, so there doesn't need to be a team journal. We're meeting in person, so we'll talk about the articles as a class in person, in Seton Hall, in a classroom, face-to-face, Javier and I. However, 15 of us will be doing a topic talk that night. I'll call you guys Group A. As of midnight on Tuesday, the class is finally set, and now that the class is finally set, I am going to create a topic talk schedule, but I wanted to do this video and prep for this video before I created a topic talk schedule. So that is the flow of how we're going to go throughout the semester. All the articles and all the deliverable files from here to May 10th are here in Blackboard. Okay, so let's get to some of our questions. Oh, that's the syllabus. File, Word, open recent. Alrighty, so this is the document I prepared. Let me blow it up a whole lot. So this is what I do. I have the article here, and then I have the questions here. And that's why I like your questions to be grouped together, because it's easy for me to cut and paste and create this article doing it this way. So we have to start the semester with this article. It's a very, very big deal in my mind. And this article, although this was 1988, created a firestorm in the academic literature. The idea of being market-oriented, having this external orientation, really was the first time someone solidified what a lot of people have been talking about for a number of years. And then soon thereafter, the academic literature went bananas with scales and strategy articles. And if you go into the Journal of Marketing Research, the Journal of Academy of Marketing Science, there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of articles on market-oriented. But I love this one. I really love this one because this is the one that kicked it all off. So if you're wondering why we're reading something that's this old, this is why we're reading something that's this old. Okay? Now, I'm going to send you this link. This is a link to my blog. And if you go up in here and type in market orientation, surprise, surprise, there are tons of articles here about market orientation, because why? It's something that I care a whole lot about. But this one right here is one of the key ones. Now, Jenny was in this class, at this point, it was 5 or 6 years ago, and she asked about market orientation is market driven versus market driving. Okay. First, let's review. Market-oriented firms have 1, an incredibly strong external orientation towards customers. 2, an incredibly strong external orientation towards competition. And an incredibly strong internal communication within the firm. Okay. Most firms do 1 and 2 well. These 2 orientations are very easy. It's 3 where most firms do not do well or at all. You know, we keep talking about these functional silos, okay? And if we look on page 120, which is the next page of this article, and you see how marketing's defending their turf, and manufacturing's defending their turf, and sales is defending their turf, and research and development's defending their turfs, finance is defending their turf. Okay, I do not like functional silos. I do not. They hinder. They create more politics within the firm. And instead of looking more externally towards competitors or customers, we spend more time looking internally at ourselves. And it's inefficient. It really, really is. I mean, on page 124 of the market orientation article, I love that the VP of sales went bananas, that someone else talked to his customers, and I love that he got fired. This idea of being externally oriented towards the market, this was a philosophy that was born years ago. But you're going to see throughout the semester how we say market-oriented, market-oriented, market-oriented. That in a bottom-up world where we're dependent upon the crowd for everything, market orientation is the only strategy. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. Okay? Let's get to your questions. How does a marketer differentiate between what is a more important customer is? In my opinion, the customer has to be part of the strategic vision of the firm. Okay, there's some questions further down that talk about, you know, well, is it only because of how much money they bring into the firm? No. You know, the partnership for the value that the firm creates with the customer needs to be part of the strategic vision of the firm. If the customer wants you to start making golf carts, and you don't make golf carts, then that's not part of your strategy. And if you don't think you can go there, or you can't be the number 1 or 2 player in that marketplace, you wouldn't go there. Should the customer choose the company or product or vice versa? I think it is something that the customer and the company work together. Because if we're externally oriented, and we're creating value for our customers, well, guess what? We should do it together, you know. Or the firm should know the customer so well that the firm should be able to make recommendations that fit in the wheelhouse of the customer. At the same time, the firm is only going to make recommendations or execute on things that's strategically important to the firm as well. Do final decisions that are kicked upstairs to CEOs traditionally fail? Lack of knowledge. It's not a lack of knowledge. We can go back to why organizations don't learn. That, you know, sometimes the hubris from the C-suite is, well, if it didn't come from the top, I don't want to hear it. And firms that are more siloed, that are very hierarchical, that are very top-down, nothing gets kicked upstairs that actually will happen. Only if something gets kicked upstairs to a firm that's market-oriented or a little more flat would they actually consider the idea. You know. Why is getting close to the customer now meaningless? Well, getting close to the customer is meaningless in the sense that if you don't do it, you don't exist. You have to do it. And given the level of data that we can get from both Clickstream, from both CRM, from both Scanner, we have a ton of data. We're getting really, really close to the customer is table stakes. Necessary but not sufficient. Okay? We need to go well beyond that. In other words, you need to provide value. How can we tell if whether a particular company or business unit is marketing effective? That's a good question. I mean, really, are you delivering on your promises? Are you being able to create value, tell your customers what's in it for them without them asking? Can you grow your customers' businesses? There you go. Okay, another team here. The article states that it's unlikely that any company ever became market-oriented with a bottom-up approach. Today's society seems to be in agreement that top-down approaches are ineffective. The article is suggesting that the company decision should always be top-down. This is an artifact of 1988. I just, in my preamble, told you that in the bottom-up world, this is the only way to go. Only firms that are market-oriented. If you're bottom-up, you have to be market-oriented. Because you're bottom-up, by definition. You have no choice. You're not hierarchical. You have to be externally oriented towards the market. And your firm, the inter-firm communication, has to be really strong because you have to take that knowledge from customers and competitors and turn that into knowledge with your firm. For companies, if being market-oriented is a key to success, should a specific department be set up to oversee department activities to ensure that all departments are in sync? All right. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit because I have a lot of comments about that in these two articles. But I have a hard time saying any one department should be in charge. You know, if I had my druthers, there wouldn't be a marketing department or a finance department. There wouldn't be a management department. There wouldn't be a product line department. There wouldn't be. We would have a different organization. It would be more team-oriented or goal-oriented than functional area-oriented. We see a lot of innovative startups and small companies disrupting the market space because it's easier for the small companies and startups to disrupt the marketplace. Will it be possible for an established organization, which is market-oriented, to come out with an innovative product that disrupts the market that it's oriented to do? Well, hell yeah. There's tons of companies that are doing this. You know, I'm an Apple apologist right now, but Apple believes in what I call creative destruction, and it's not my term, by the way. This is a Nobel Prize-winning economist created this term. Basically, you put yourself out of business. You know, Apple, a company would not create the iPad if they knew it would reduce sales of their computers. Yet Apple still created the iPad. iPad sales are dropping rapidly. But Apple still knows that the iPad is the future, and the iPad, especially the Pro models, are better than most notebooks, better than most Chromebooks, but at the same time are still not ready a full laptop replacement. But if I give that Pro 3 years, 4 years, I think the iPad Pro is going to be better than a Mac Air for almost everything that we do. It's easier for smaller companies to do this because they don't have legacy infrastructure or legacy culture, making it harder to disrupt. But there are a lot of companies. If you think of every company that's went under, that used to, you think of Kodak, you think of the financial meltdown and what it did to GM. You think of companies like that. I mean, if you do not have a rapid turnaround like what we saw in IBM in the 1990s, I think what we're seeing now with Microsoft, with the new CEO Satya, they're doing really, really, really good stuff. They're changing, they're disrupting themselves. They're orienting themselves towards the market and cloud and B2B and enterprise. Microsoft's going to be fine. I was worried about them for a while, but not anymore. What are some of the ways companies can take a global view of their trade? I mean, do you mean in terms of, an 800 view of what they're doing? Or do you mean globally as in terms of global operations? I have a feeling that you're talking about how do they get this bigger picture perspective. And I think a lot of it has to come from the crowd. I mean, there's only so much knowledge. You can only view yourself in the mirror so many times before you tell yourself a story that you believe. And that unless you get feedback from outside your loop, you're never going to get that global view. Now, I hope that's what you're asking here, but follow up with me an email if it's not. Is this really a new concept? Well, the article's 1988, so you tell me if you think that's new or not. It isn't pretty much the same thing as being a company becoming complacent, bureaucratic, political, and grows in size. Hasn't this always been the case? Same reason Toyota was able to succeed in the 1980s. You know, we could say that Toyota and Nissan were, and Honda especially, were significantly more oriented towards changing consumer behavior in the 1980s and in the 1990s in the U.S. than Ford or Chrysler or General Motors was. Is that what you're kind of asking? Then we're going to agree here. Is being large a disadvantage to being market-driven? It shouldn't be, but it usually does because of legacy biases that are highlighted in this article. What if you started out being market-driven and suddenly grow? Any significant difference? Are there any examples of a company like GE being market-driven? GE is very, very good. I mean, when you go back to Jack Welch in 1980, 81, 82, 83, when he first started, he made it very clear. You're either going to be number 1 or number 2 in your product class. If you're not number 1 or number 2, then you need to plan to be number 1 or number 2, or we're selling you.
Call from.
You know, by having a philosophy and a strategy like being number 1 or number 2, GE was agnostic to what businesses they were in. You know, if they weren't in a growth industry or they weren't 1 or 2, they were out. You know? So yeah. Some departments generate revenue and are more valued than those that are not. Salespeople get paid more than engineers in many cases. Do you think that compensations are required to effectively implement that approach similar to that of Wolverine? Well, see, we're already talking about departments, and we're already talking about silos. We're already talking about particular jobs, more silos, you know. Do you think of yourself as the New York Giants, or you only think of yourself as the quarterback or the lineman? Does the quarterback get paid more money? Does the wide receivers get paid more money? Well, guess what? The wide receivers don't get the ball unless the linemen are there. And if you can't value the team as a whole, you're screwed. You're not market-oriented, and your team's not going to the playoffs. Do I need to say anything more than that? Look at the Jets. You know? Sorry, Jets fans. How do you think the most current generations will respond to being market-oriented when they become top executives? I think it'll be easier for the current generations because they grew up in a bottom-up world with bottom-up culture on demand. You know, they understand the cultural zeitgeist better than the people that are in the C-suite now. The people in the C-suite now think this way. The most current generations, particularly the millennials, which are the largest percentage of people in the workforce right now, they get it. They get it. Something as simple as, yeah, you should be able to work from home. Well, millennials get that because they've been playing with a computer and using computers in high school for their education forever. You know, going to the office for FaceTime does not necessarily mean productivity. With customer needs constantly changing, do you think the company will ever be fully market-oriented? In other words, with customer needs constantly changing, do you think a company will ever be fully market-oriented? Well, reverse the question. If the company is not fully market-oriented, given that customer needs are constantly changing, then the company will not exist anymore. I.e. JCPenney, i.e. Sears, i.e. Kmart. You know, Macy's just closed 100 stores. They're in deep, deep trouble because Warby Parker's cleaning them out. You know? Why am I ever going to go to Sears for these things? Never. How do you choose the right customers? Is it based on revenue generation? No. I think I mentioned this one earlier, talked about this earlier. It's really about part of the strategic goals of the firm and what you want to accomplish, and given your strengths and given your weaknesses, think about Porter's 5 forces and a SWOT analysis. That's how you know what the right customers are. How do you do an unbiased evaluation if you are really market-oriented? The crowd tells you. You don't. You have your view, but that's only the internal view. You need the external view. The crowd will tell you that you're a numbnut. Are there any instances where a bottom-up approach is effective in creating a market-oriented culture? I think the bottom-up approach, which we are going to talk about in every class this semester, it only works if you're market-oriented. How can an organization move from a marketing-oriented strategy to a market-oriented strategy? What are the steps to effectively achieve this shift? Well, these people only care about selling. Okay? It's that simple. Selling, selling, selling. Give me more budget for ads. Give me more budget for conferences. Give me more budget for promo. Give me more budget for swag. Give me more budget for this. And it's a complete push marketing approach. Push, 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 push. Market-oriented is a pull strategy. You know, you see where the demand is, and you shift towards the marketplace. And this is only one silo in the firm. This is the whole firm. These guys, if you make pink widgets, they'll try to get as much budget to sell pink widgets as possible. These people here, as an organization, will tell you that the market doesn't want pink anymore. It doesn't make it how much ads you do, or how many coupons you do, or how much promo you do. You're still going to be ineffective selling pink. What does it mean to change from being customer-driven to being market-oriented? Well, here, we need not only consumer behavior, customer behavior, we need market behavior. And sometimes some of our customers, we may be oriented towards them, but if our customers are not moving forward to where the market is headed, then guess what? They're going to run into trouble, which if they run into trouble, that means we're going to lose sales as well. A good market-oriented firm works in behalf of their customers. What is the most effective way to manage an organization to ensure that all marketing efforts are fully utilized and integrated within the business? Ooh. You know? I'll just say one word. Listen. Most organizations say, follow me, do what I tell you to do, as opposed to listen, how do you think we should handle these situations? What are the advantages and disadvantages of making strategy decisions interfunctionally and individually? Is that effective? Yes, it's very effective. It's much more strategic. Marketing can't make a decision if manufacturing can't manufacture it. You know, I don't care what kind of phone it is. If this thing keeps breaking, the glass keeps shattering. Marketing wants the thing to be waterproof, but yet they want high-end speakers. You know. What is the best strategy to ensure communication between teams is well coordinated and executed so everyone feels valued and committed to its success? What is the consequences for poor communication? Poor communication is the left hand talking without the right hand knowing what's going on. And you can't expect the firm to fire on all cylinders, to do well, if everybody is not talking to each other. It's going to lead to massive inefficiencies. What is the best way to judge our performance? You know, to go back to this, somehow or another, I doubt Volkswagen and their $4.3 billion fine for the diesel little devices, I guarantee that that was not a corporate-wide strategy. I doubt it very much. What is the best way to judge our performance in terms of the company as a whole, not just individual selves in areas? It's the company as a whole. It's the only way you can measure for market orientation. The 3 C's, CCC, which is most important. Well, why do I got to limit to one? Why is there only one important? Why is there a but here? You know, it sounds like a Jim Collins conversation. Really strong leaders don't do but, they do ands. Communication and coordination and commitment. How can organizations understand their markets and customers efficiently, accurately, and timely? They listen. If you're externally oriented towards the market, towards competitors and competition, and you're constantly listening, you know, it still baffles me how many firms do not use a social media listening tool. I mean, anything that happens in Twitter that's relevant to you, you would know in 15 seconds or less. Yet, people don't listen. They don't listen. They don't listen. How do you think most generations will respond to being market-oriented when they become top executives? I don't know about most generations, but I'm very hopeful that our millennial generations that grew up in a bottom-up culture will not suddenly revert to top-down mentality when they become a CEO or in the C-suite. With customer needs constantly changing, do you think a company will ever be fully market-oriented? There are very good market-oriented firms out there. Warby Parker is a spectacularly market-oriented firm. So is Harry's. So is Dollar Shave Club. So is Target's pretty good. Walgreens is pretty good. CVS is pretty good. You know, they're pretty good. They're more market-oriented than not. What degree should a company rely on its customer base versus its own market industry research? R&D may say something about a product as perceived by the customer. As an executive, which input should you value more? Well, you do the research. You listen to the customer base. You do the market research. You see what's more strategic with your plan. And as a company, you decide, what can we do now that's most strategic for our firm? I don't know if it's one versus the other. It's more of a holistic approach here. Where do you draw the line when it comes to push your own functional goals too far? You shouldn't have functional goals. I'm not a fan of functions. I'm not. I would get rid of departments. I really would. I would organize the company around goals and objectives and not functional. I would not have a functional setup either by product line or by function and then come up with a goal and try to back myself into that. I would create a goal and create the team to operationalize that goal is what I would do. That would be market oriented. All right. This conversation is not going away anytime soon. Trust me. Next up, decision-driven marketing. So this is a 2014 article that if you think about it, it's the same conversation. It's the same conversation. You know? We're breaking down silos. You know, we're using data. See, this is my problem, though. They're doing the same thing you guys were asking. They're trying to come up with an alternative matrix. Instead of not marketing, they put marketing in the middle, and they have marketing as the mothership silo interacting with the other silos. Yet, why doesn't sales and finance talk to each other directly? There's no path between sales and marketing directly. Sales and finance directly. You have to go through marketing. I don't think that's a good way to go. I like this idea. I think it's a step forward. I think it's part of the conversation. See, look, they talk about Target here. That's a pretty good example. Really like page, what is this, 69. They go through the traffics, and we have this over here. Anything else in this article? Oh, yeah. Just the last page of this this decision-driven marketing is, this last page is 2 pages ahead of where we will be. 2 pages. 2 modules ahead of where we will be. Everything on this page, CRM, customer lifetime value, this is all where we're headed the next 3 weeks. You know, market-oriented, decision-driven. Of course we're going to need CRM. Of course we're going to talk about customer lifetime value. Right? What are some of the key ways that marketing can build credibility with the other functions? How does marketing team effectively collaborate with the finance team who is focused primarily on budgets and constraints? Well, again, I'm not a fan of it just being marketing. But if we're going to stay within a functional structure, marketing tends to be the boundary spanning silo. Marketing does the most external with customers and competitors. Marketing is the one that probably has the keys to the social media listening tool. Marketing in this functional setup has to be the one that disseminates the most amount of information to the other functional areas. And if it's marketing, and marketing is bringing in valuable information to the other functional areas, well, then they're going to evaluate them and collaborate. The article mentions marketing interfacing with 3 groups. What are the groups you think are more important for marketing to collaborate? I think I answered this question already. I'm not into functions. I'm not into silos. I want you guys to think about breaking the silos. I hate silos. Don't do silos. Create your own informal network at work across silos. There must have been some companies that tried a decision, reset, and failed. What are some of the reasons why some companies successfully implemented a decision reset models and some do not? There's a lot here, okay? There's a lot to this question. You know, it could be the case that there was just enough will within the team to say, okay, this didn't work out, but the goal and objective was still the right decision. Let's keep trying. Or it just could have been the CEO saying, we're not giving up on this. I could care what would happen. Let's keep going. You know, is the lack of collaboration between groups the main reason why companies fail in decision-making process? It's one of the main reasons. And I think she does a much better, he does a much better job. By the way, she's super famous from Harvard. We're going to read a number of articles from her this semester. Actually, one of the networking articles last week was from her. Gina rocks. I'm telling you. It's not the only reason. Culture, to me, is one of the main reasons, and we'll get to that. In general, how can a marketer evolve to a technological view? Well, the old marketer can't, but the new marketer will, because nothing marketers do now happens without technology. Both in the products that we create, how we collect the data, how we manage our relationships, and even how we promote. You know, it's all technology. As a matter of fact, a lot of my undergrads that graduated within the last 5 years are having a hard time getting that next job, because the next job is much more analytical, a lot more finance-like, and finance people are taking their jobs. You know, ratios and all that wonderful good stuff. How can a marketer utilize IT techniques without learning code? Well, let me just give you a metaphor. Philosophically, I know exactly how Google Analytics works. I could tell you exactly how Google AdWords works. I can talk about the algorithm. I can talk about white hat and black hat techniques, right? But do I need to know how to code or set up campaigns within Google Analytics that would maximize my SEO? No, I don't. Because there are other really good people on my team that do that. But I need to know all of it about... Here's the analogy, okay? I'm Dale Earnhardt. My car drives 200 miles an hour, okay? I'm the driver. My skill set is driving the car. Do I need to build the engine too? No. I have an incredible team that builds the engine. Do I know a lot about the engine? Yes. Do I know that if I'm having problems in turn that there's compression issues and there's probably something wrong with my valves or how they're firing or the timing's off? Yes. Can you communicate that to your tech people? Yes. You need to know how to drive. You need to know the worldview. But do you need to know how to build the engine as well? I don't think so. I don't. What is the best way to educate the consumer, evolve with tech, improve consumer experience? It's a two-way street. It's a relationship. You know, in a top-down world, there's a one-way street. In a bottom-up world, there's a two-way street. The word is engage. The word is dialogue. So many firms don't dialogue with their consumers. It's sad. How many times is their strategic brief really created? A strategy brief? Well, it depends on what you call a strategy brief. I know this is an article and all like that. But there's a lot of firms that really do spend about every 3 months having all hands and figure out, okay, what's the plan? What's the goal? What's our objectives? What's the strategy for us to get there? Nordstrom is awesome. It's one of the reasons why Macy's is getting crushed. Macy's is kind of here with Nordstrom above them and Target and Kohl's below them. And that market, the market between Nordstrom and Kohl's is not all that big for all the Macy's of the world to survive. You know, there's no Nordstroms closing and there's no Targets closing. But in between that, there is. Macy's is no longer a premium product. Nordstrom's the premium. So what does that make Macy's in the marketplace? Well, guess what? It's still cheaper for me to buy stuff in Target and Kohl's. And if I want some premium stuff, maybe I go to Macy's, but maybe not. Neiman Marcus. With Nordstrom moving away from categories and brands of clothes to focus on their customers, will this hurt Nordstrom's relationship with its clothing retailers? No, 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 and no. No. Because those clothing retailers want to be in Nordstrom's, because Nordstrom's does not do couponing. Nordstrom's maintains price and margins. And if you're a shoe brand and you're not in Nordstrom's, you're definitely screwing up. The shoe brands need to be there more than Nordstrom needs them there. What is an example of a real-world company that has successfully incorporated all the seams, and how have they done so? Well, I know we're talking about the seams, and that's what they talked about, the seams, but it's easier for me to talk about which firms are really market-oriented. You know, and if just when you get a chance, you know, this Warby Parker, this was a podcast that I was listening to with the founders of Warby Parker. And oh, by the way, one of the other podcasts that I recommended to you guys was How I Built This, and the Warby Parker guys were on there. And you listen to their stories. They have co-CEOs. This is an organization with 2 CEOs. And they operate incredibly well. How many companies you know have co-CEOs that work out really well? You know. How do you build a data-driven market strategy? Well, easy. The strategy doesn't come from your gut. You know, you're using data to decide what you should do. You need to have an ongoing systematic data collection process. Customers, competitors, clickstream, whatever data you think is significant, that's what you make your decision upon. You know, it's not just because you think it's pretty. Not because you think it's a good idea. You know it's a good idea because the data tells you. What determines that a company's decision-making process are efficient or effective? Well, if it matches your strategic vision and your internal metrics and your internal metrics all look good, then it's effective and efficient. You know, are your customers happy? Are you on mission? Are you making money and you're profitable and you're maintaining margin? Those look like good metrics to me. When is it most likely that the process will become micromanaged or too bureaucratic? When is it most likely? This is a cultural thing. There are firms that have too many people or decision makers or yes men, and that's why if there's 10 meetings to decide when the meeting will be, How do we get a corporation to provide support at every corporate level? How do we do it? Ooh, this is really tough. This is really tough. This is really tough. How do we get a corporation to provide support at every... You know, I get this question every year in multiple different ways, but it goes something along the lines of this. I work at a company. We are top down. It's highly bureaucratic. It's highly political. We are inward looking and nothing but inward looking. What do I do? And well, the easy answer is to get out and go find another NFL team to play for. But, you know, what I suggest to do is to create your own informal networks. To go across divisions, go across silos, and informally. There's other previous articles. I think they're in the back file. We called them communities of practice. And that's what you set up, a community of practice. And you, after work, at lunch, these informal networks is how you get consensus across different corporate levels. Decision-driven marketing seems to be an effective way to break a cycle of institutional failure. But it doesn't have to be the same intrinsic fall in the long. Doesn't it have to be the same? No, I don't think so. By using decision-driven and by using data, by definition, you're already one step closer to being MO, because the data is not coming from you. You're collecting data on customers, competitors, clickstream, and you're using that information externally to change the internal, as opposed to just politics or bureaucracy changing the internal. I think it's a step in the right direction. I just don't think it needs to be marketing to do it. The article seems to imply that marketing can make effective decisions on items outside of marketing. Doesn't that lend itself to bad decisions? We're in agreement here. I don't think marketing should be in the center of that circle. It is not the job of the CEO to lay out a vision and ensure that its department heads know the vision so they can work collaboratively. It is the job of the CEO and the team, hopefully from data that comes bottom up, to lay out the vision. I'm okay there. But at the same time, the CEO, he or she's got to lay out the vision and then put the teams together in a way that the vision can execute. If there's a dysfunctional organization, is the CEO ultimately responsible? Always. Usually always. Always. In your opinion, they get paid too much. It's their stock options. It's their name on the masthead of the company. He or she... I really wanted Yahoo to be a success. I wanted them to right the ship. You know, and not just Marissa, but also Carol, and also Terry, and also, we can go back. They've had 4 or 5 CEOs in a row that could not... Yeah. In your opinion, what's the most critical category of marketing-related decisions across organization teams? I don't know if these are marketing-related decisions. These are market-oriented decisions that should not just come out of marketing. We got to break the cycle here. You know. How do we identify communication patterns between departments? Marketing touches every department in the graphic shown in the reading. Can't be the same said for finance. Yeah. We're in agreement here. I already talked to this. No problem. Why should marketing have the final say as opposed to finance or sales? We're in agreement here. It shouldn't be marketing. How long does it take on average to recreate the seams of functions? It seems like a lengthy process of how the company continues to operate. I don't like the functions. We're in agreement here. Let's kill them. Either formally or informally. What are the challenges for a traditional marketer who sees his job as a segmented task within the organization rather than a binding force connecting all the fuzz? That marketer is in deep, deep trouble, because the tools and the world, in the top-down world that the marketer who was traditional in nature, that world's disappearing. Those jobs don't exist anymore, or they're disappearing rapidly. And the skill sets needed for those jobs are disappearing rapidly. Since technology plays a key role in today's business environment, what can an organization, corporation do to ensure that its employees are keeping up with the latest technology developments and trends? Oh my gosh, this is not that hard of a thing to do. Education, learning, external orientation, go to conferences. Talk to each other. How can an organization promote collective decision-making or influence a change in its employee mindset regarding decision-making strategies? Conversation, interfirm communication, dialogue, talk to each other, either face-to-face or Slack. What activities could we keep in-house, automate, or outsource? This is kind of broad. I'm not sure really what to say here, but I can say that I'm not a big fan of any of this. It should all be in-house, and if you want to automate some, I'm okay with that. Can decisions be made successfully without considering other functions in the organizations? No, 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 and no. What are the most common themes of the organization? It depends on the organization. There are some organizations where finance is king. There are some organizations where marketing is king. There are some organizations where supply chain is king. Since structural constraints and communication glitches often isolate companies from the information and resources they needed, what should they do to overcome these obstacles? Oh boy. Reorganize. See, what happens is, if the team is organized around a goal and not functions, they serve the goal. It's much easier that way. In your opinion, what is the most critical category of market-related decisions across organization seems? We had this question already. What are some of the ways that companies measure customer lifetime value? I rarely do this. And I'm literally going to say, hold that thought. Because we have a whole article coming your way with all kinds of equations and measurements. It's a toolkit article. And I love that we're starting and leading in that direction of CRM and CLV. And yes, we will park ourselves there. But I'm not going to go there right now. If you really want it, just look ahead and you'll see them. You'll see the articles there. Measuring both the word of mouth, measuring both customer lifetime value. Yeah. What is the evolution of fast execution being combated and controlled by successful marketing? What? How is the evolution of fast execution being combated and controlled? Not sure what we're asking here. Fast execution being combated and controlled. Do you like fast? Do you not like fast? I apologize. I'm really not sure what's being asked here. What functions does marketing work with to make, what other functions? All of them. All of them. There should be no functions. We should be market oriented and not functionally oriented. How about that? MO, not FO. Maybe that should be my t-shirt. MO, not FO. When analyzing seams, what is the most underlying issue that causes the disconnect between marketing and other functions? Well, what is the most underlying issue that causes a disconnect between one part of the company and another? Lack of communication, lack of being on the same page, lack of serving another leader, lack of having a shared vision. Yeah? All right, so this is what I'm going to do. Those were the first two articles. I'm going to cut this up. I'm going to create this as one video, and then I'm going to do another video for the next one. Okay? Stay tuned.